You know, it's been a long day, but I've got some horror movies, so all is right with the world. Yes, indeed, it's that time of the month once again in which we open up the DVD and Blu-ray offerings from the HorrorPack company. For those of you who don't know, I say this every time, so apologies if you've heard it a million times, but for those of you who don't know, HorrorPack is a monthly horror movie subscription service. They have a DVD option and a Blu-ray option. Each of them sends you 4 horror movies every month. The Blu-ray also comes with a HorrorPack exclusive of some sort. And if you're new to this channel, welcome, and so you know what we're doing, every month I get my boxes, I open them up, and you see at the very same moment as I do whatever's inside. It's usually some really good stuff. By the way, I also will put purchase links down in the What's It, so if you're interested in any of these movies, obviously even if you subscribe to HorrorPack, it's too late for you to get them now because that's this month's. But if you don't subscribe and you're interested in some of these, there will be links down in the What's It. They're affiliate links, so if you use those, I also get a little bit of a kickback. It doesn't change any of my opinions or reviews, but it's one way that you can help support my work here on this channel. Speaking of which, while I open these up, another good way that you can support the channel is to do all the YouTube things that we're always pestering you about. That means, of course, subscribe, ring the notification bell, leave me a comment, like the video, share it with your friends, and, you know, just generally do all of those things that show the evil YouTube algorithms that people are actually watching my stuff. It's always appreciated. It does help. Anyway, I've got the packs, so let's go ahead and dig right in and see what we've got for January 2023. Good God, it's 2023 already. When I do these, I usually like to start with the DVD horror packs. That's what this one is. So let's dig right in and see what DVD offerings we have, beginning with Annihilation. This one I have seen. I didn't yet own a copy, so I'm glad to add it to my collection. It's a sort of science fiction horror movie. Very strange, sort of surreal, but a pretty good movie. The description on the back says, from the director of Ex Machina comes a new sci-fi classic. Biologist and former soldier Lena, Natalie Portman, is shocked when her missing husband, Oscar Isaac, comes home near death from a top-secret mission into the Shimmer, a mysterious quarantine zone no one has ever returned from. Now, Lena and her elite team must enter a beautiful, deadly world of mutated landscapes and creatures to discover how to stop the growing phenomenon that threatens all life on Earth. Experience this visually stunning film critics hail as a bold and innovative thriller. That's a pretty good description. They go into this weird sort of portal into this other sort of alien world, and there are some monsters and some surreal landscapes, and it's sort of neo-Lovecraftian cosmic horror in a sense. I don't want to overemphasize the Lovecraftian elements because Lovecraftian horror is notoriously difficult to put on film. Only a few films have ever really managed it. And this sidesteps a lot of those issues, but there are certain Lovecraftian elements to it. If you like weird movies and if you like science fiction in your horror, you'll probably like Annihilation, and I'm glad to have gotten a copy to add to my collection. So we're off to a good start. Next up, we have a movie called The Midwife. The description says, deliverance has a due date, and I suspect that deliverance in this context has a sort of double meaning. I'm guessing this is some sort of an evil baby movie, or perhaps an evil midwife movie. I'm not sure which. Let's read the description and find out. It says, Rosemary's Baby meets the hand that rocks the cradle. Lizzie is living her best life with her loving husband Charlie. They have a beautiful home and a new baby on the way. But when a sudden miscarriage sets off a series of supernatural occurrences, Lizzie struggles to make sense of the chaos, turning her happy home into a house of horrors. Is she losing her mind? Can she still trust her husband? Is the spirit of baby Michael stalking the attic? Deliverance has a due date when the midwife makes a house call. That sounds pretty good. I like a lot of the stuff it's got going on. It does not really answer all of my questions. I'm not sure if we're talking about an evil, satanic perhaps, midwife, or the ghost of a baby that's turned evil somehow. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but I'm looking forward to trying it. It's not a film that I'm familiar with, but it sounds quite intriguing. Next up, we have Gretel and Hansel, a grim fairy tale. This was the recent one. It's another one that I have seen. This is a period piece. It's a slow burn sort of horror, a sort of reimagining of the Hansel and Gretel story. I will say it divided audiences. Some people really liked the sort of slow burn, folkloric sort of horror, and some people did not particularly like it. I thought it had a lot going for it. I don't think all the pieces perfectly aligned, but it's still very much worth a watch, and certainly a worthy thing to have in one's collection. And, as is my way, I'll read the description on this one as well. It looks like a short description on the back of this one, which says, "A long time ago, in a distant fairy tale countryside, a young girl leads her little brother into a dark wood in desperate search of food and work, only to stumble upon a nexus of terrifying evil." So, if you know the Hansel and Gretel story, you kind of know what you're expecting, although this goes in a few directions that you may not expect. Very much worth a watch. I'm glad to have a copy of this one as well. And finally, for the DVD pack, we have American Horror Stories. This looks like a collection of, the cover says, 12 movies. The back also says it's over 16 haunting hours of horror. They've been doing quite a few of these collections in the horror packs recently, and I'm all for it. It gives us a lot of value. A lot of these collections, maybe not all of the films are great, but usually there's at least a couple sort of standouts, at least a few that are good enough, and if a couple of them don't quite live up, so be it, because, well, we're still getting 12 movies all in one place. Let's just have a look and see which films are in this one. I'm not going to read the descriptions for all of them, because we'd be here all day, but I'll just read off which movies are included. We have Don't Answer the Phone, Point of Terror, House on Haunted Hill, there's a classic, A Bucket of Blood, Horror Express, The Little Shop of Horrors. This is the Roger Corman one starring Jack Nicholson from back in the 60s, or, 1960 exactly. That's been in a few of these collections. It's one of those that sort of makes the rounds in these bundles, but it's a pretty... Okay, it's not a great film. I was going to say it was a pretty good film. It's not great, but it has a lot of historic value, and there's a certain charm to it anyway, so it's certainly worth a watch. And then, carrying on, we also have Nightmare Castle, Silent Night, Bloody Night, there's a nice one, Bloody Pit of Horror, The Driller Killer, Don't Look in the Basement, and Drive-In Massacre. So there are some duplicates between this collection and some of the collections that I already have in my media library, including some of the ones from HorrorPack. I think there's a couple of the films overlap, but that's okay, because there are also some films on here that I don't believe I have anywhere else in my library, and a couple of them that I don't think I've even seen, so we know there's a couple good ones. There's a couple I'm looking forward to trying because I haven't yet, so I'm excited to dig into this little collection. I like these collections. And that brings us, of course, to the Blu-ray package. Let's just dig right into that one as well, shall we? First up, we have a film called Distorted, starring Christina Ricci and John Cusack. I've not seen the film, I don't believe, but I've seen the cover. I've seen it in stores or people talking about it or something. I don't really know much about it, so let's just dive right in with the description, which says, Lauren and Russell Curran decide to move away from the bustle of the city and into the peaceful oasis of the Pinnacle, a coveted luxury condo that boasts ultra-modern design and state-of-the-art features and security systems. When Lauren starts to suspect that the building has a dark side, she seeks help from Vernon, an investigative journalist who has an interest in cyber conspiracy. Together, they come to believe that the Pinnacle may be brainwashing the unsuspecting residents. So that's a pretty interesting idea. Not entirely original. You know, people moving into an apartment and it turns out to have secrets has been done. Cyber conspiracies has been done. Maybe even the combination of the two, although now we're starting to get into more original territory, I think. But the thing of it is, regardless of the relative originality of the script, there's a lot of interesting ideas there and a lot of opportunity to make a pretty good movie, to tell a good story. And with this particular cast, I really think we're probably in for a treat. So I'm very much looking forward to trying Distorted. And then we have a film called Reunion. The little tagline on the front says, "Every family has a legacy." This being a horror movie, something tells me this may not be a particularly happy legacy. But Every Family Has a Legacy, Reunion. It's another film with which I'm unfamiliar, so let's just dive right into the description and see what we're in for in this case. The description says, a pregnant woman returns to her recently deceased grandparents' old family home to spend time with her estranged mother. What begins as a tenuous reunion slowly turns terrifying. A psychological thriller that preys upon perception, Reunion sees veteran actress Julia Ormond deliver a tour-de-force performance of threateningly quiet intensity and features a twisty narrative that will burrow itself into the darkest corners of your mind. So once again, the description doesn't tell us a whole lot about exactly what's going on, which I appreciate. In fact, in my previous video, when I was talking about the horror book subscription service, Nightworms, I mentioned the same thing about one of those descriptions, that they didn't give away too much, but I like that because I appreciate a description that's just enough to sort of get my interest without telling me everything, and then I can enjoy discovering what the evil is as I watch the movie or as I read the book. Too many descriptions and trailers these days seem to give away too much, so I'm glad this doesn't tell us everything. But it does tell us a few things. We know that we're visiting an old family home. We're dealing with estranged family members, so there's some family drama there, which always makes for interesting character study. And then to layer horror on top of that to bring in some kind of evil, whether that evil is born out of the family drama, whether those characters are at each other's throats, or whether we're laying an external evil onto that sort of already fraught relationship. Either way, there should be some interesting stuff in Reunion. Next, we have a movie called Ill, Final Contagium. This one looks really familiar. I haven't seen it yet, but I know I've seen it, not seen the movie, but I've seen this somewhere. Maybe it came out of a Walmart $5 bin or a dollar store horror movie rack or something. I know I've seen this one around somewhere, and I haven't got around to watching it yet, so I don't know a whole lot about it. But let's read the description and see what Ill is all about. It says, a rogue scientist in Chile illegally spreads toxic and biochemical substances by way of contaminated money, leading to a worldwide pandemic. Of course, we're getting a lot of pandemic stories these days, as to be expected, but I like this idea that it's spreading by way of contaminated money, because we don't always think about what's on the money that we handle, but it turns out that money comes into contact with a lot of illicit substances. In fact, there's a sort of trivia fact that's repeated from time to time that there are some particular contraband substances, whose name I'll not mention because I don't want to accidentally get demonetized, but on pretty much every dollar bill that you handle, there are some of these substances, and we just don't think about it. So I like this idea that it could be contaminated by a biochemical weapon, and that could cause the outbreak. It's an interesting idea. Anyway, carrying on with the description. First, the virus is spread in Italy when 2 women steal a contaminated case of cash. Then, in Kosovo, a transsexual pays for surgery only to find that all of her injection sites have been infected with the virus. Lastly, a father in Germany tries out extreme methods to save his contaminated son from succumbing to the virus. So, it sounds like we have several stories related to this outbreak. I'm not sure whether they all come together and unify, or whether we're just following several separate characters. We'll have to watch it and find out. But there are some really interesting ideas in this. The artwork on the back makes it look like this is pretty much a zombie virus, so I'm expecting a zombie kind of story. I like zombies though, and it sounds like there are at least some interesting ideas at the heart of this one, so I'm looking forward to trying Ill. And that brings us, last but certainly not least, to what must be the HorrorPack exclusive. It says it is exclusive number 79, and that's a film called Worst Laid Plans. It says it's an anthology of vacation horror, and there's a little tag that says, "Wish you weren't here." So we have another anthology film, which I always like. In addition to those collections, like I mentioned with the one from the DVD pack, we've also gotten several anthology films, which are single films consisting of several shorts, and I always like those as well. They're a great opportunity to try out some new stuff, maybe introduce audiences to a new filmmaker or two. Anyway, let's see what we're in for with this particular one. The description says, filmed in 3 different states by 3 acclaimed genre short film directors, all making their feature debut. 3 tales of vacation-themed horror adapted from the best-selling book by Grindhouse Press. In Deep in the Heart, a fractured family tries to reconnect while touring a cave system that hides a horrifying secret. You've Been Saved is the story of 2 reunited friends on a road trip full of nostalgia and hangovers. When one of them is slipped a cryptic note by a young girl, their vacation takes a sinister turn. And finally, with Taylor Family Vacation 93, a father on vacation determined to find out the truth behind whoever is stalking his family just out of sight, comes to the sobering realization that the answer he seeks might just be hidden within the contents of his video camera. Shot in West Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida, Worst Laid Plans is the most ambitious independent horror anthology you'll see this year. So, sounds pretty interesting. We've got 3 films. Each of them sounds like an interesting premise, all having to do with horrors occurring while people are on vacation. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I could use a vacation myself, and as that doesn't seem particularly likely, I will make do with the vacation horrors in this anthology film. So there we go, 8 wonderful new films, or actually even more than that because of the collections, a few of which I've seen, most of which I haven't, but all of which sound at least interesting. There should be some great stuff in here, and I'm looking forward to all of them. Seems like another wonderfully successful month from the HorrorPack people. But now I need to go off and add these to my database and try desperately to figure out how I'm going to squeeze them into my DVD and Blu-ray case. While I do that, make sure you do all those YouTube-y things I mentioned before, like, subscribe, share, comment, etc., etc. It really does help me out. And even more importantly than doing that, as much as it does help, go watch a horror movie, read a horror book, enjoy the genre. It's good for all of us. But anyway, I'm off to go enjoy the genre for myself with these wonderful new offerings. So until next time, as always, take care and stay scared.